As promised in this video, you are going to start building your first Meteor React app, the Scorekeeper application. In this one, we'll be making the new Meteor project, and we're also going to rip everything out, getting it down to the most bare bones version possible. This is going to let us build up on that bare bones version throughout this section, adding all of the features necessary to build real world applications. By the end, you'll have a real great understanding as to how all of this fits together. Now you'll notice here I already have some programs open. I have Atom, I have the terminal, and I have my web browser. From here on out, I'm going to assume that these programs are always open. I'm not going to be telling you to open these three programs. As we work through a project, I'm going to have the project open in Atom, and I'll be in the project directory in the terminal. Now, obviously, we don't have a new project for the Scorekeeper yet, so let's go ahead and do that right now. From the terminal, let's go ahead and navigate into the Meteor projects folder. We created this in the previous section. I'm going to use cd desktop to get onto the desktop, then /Meteor-projects to get into the Meteor projects folder. Now, if I run ls here or dir on Windows, you can see we have our one project, Hello Meteor. We're not going to be working with that one anymore. We're going to create a brand new one for the Scorekeeper. In order to do this, we're also going to be introducing another command line flag. This is a flag available with all Meteor commands, and it's going to help us sync up the versions we're using. It's important that we're using the same version of Meteor so everything works as expected. Now, if I run Meteor space -- version, you can see that I'm on version 1.4.2, and this is the version of Meteor I'm going to be building the projects off of. This is Andrew with a quick update from the future. This course was filmed with version 1.4.2 of Meteor, as you just saw me print in the command prompt. There's actually a known bug in this version that can cause your application to crash. So what you're going to do is use a slightly modified version, 1.4.2.1. This very small patch release includes a fix for the bug, nothing else. All of the core Meteor features that we're going to be using throughout the course are identical. So you don't have to worry about the videos not working with this version. They were filmed with this version. This version contains a very small code fix that does not affect the functions and methods you're going to be using. It affects the internal Meteor library. It fixes the bug that can cause the app to crash. Now, there is one subtle difference that's going to occur when you're creating a new application. Let's take a quick peek at that, and then I'll get you back into the video. First up, in 1.4.2, the version of Meteor the course was filmed with, you create an app using Meteor create followed by the app name. We've already seen this. The exact same thing is true in the new version, the one that you are going to be using. The next step is to cd into that new folder. Once again, same exact step. This is where things differ. In the version that you're going to be using, as we saw in the last section, you need to run Meteor npm install. This was part of the reason that apps created with 1.4.2 would crash. So make sure to run this anytime we create a new application, which is just about 3 or 4 times throughout the entire course. You're going to see the instructions on the screen from the command prompt, so that should help remind you. Now from here, everything else is the same. We use Meteor run in both cases to run the application. So let's quickly summarize the very small changes. Anytime you see me type or say 1.4.2, think 1.4.2.1. In about 20 seconds, I'm going to type this, you type this. The 3 times throughout the course where we do create a new application, you're also going to need to run this step. Don't worry. If you forget to run the step, your application is going to crash and it is going to print a message telling you to run the Meteor npm install command. If you run into any problems throughout the course with this or with anything else, I am in the Q&A every single day, so don't hesitate to ask. All right, that's it for my small update. Sorry about this one. I usually try to avoid anything like this. Unfortunately, this is a mission critical patch, so it is going to be necessary. Let's continue on with the videos. In order to create an app with a specific version, we're going to use Meteor, create, and then we're going to specify the flag responsible for specifying the version. A little bit later, we'll be adding the folder name of the new project. Right here, -- release, followed by a space, followed by the version of Meteor to use. We're going to use 1.4.2. After that, we can specify the name of that new project, and we'll call ours score-keep. It's a scorekeeper app, but we'll give it a name like scorekeep, something kind of trendy. All right. Now that we have this command in place, we're ready to create the new Meteor application called scorekeep, and we're telling Meteor that we want to use version 1.4.2. Andrew from the future, this is the last time I'm going to bug you. Remember, you should have created the app with 1.4.2.1, and you are going to need to run Meteor npm install before you can start up the application. All right, I'm out of here. I'm not going to bug you anymore. When we run this command, we're going to get exactly what we got last time. It's going to start grabbing all of those packages. It's going to be setting up our new directory scorekeep and putting all of the boilerplate inside of it. And it's going to be generating that .meteor folder with all of those Meteor specific application files. Now we can go ahead and open up this new folder over inside of Atom. The folder is already created, even if the command hasn't finished. Over in the desktop, we have Meteor projects, and sitting right here, we have scorekeep. I'm going to go ahead and pop this open, and now we can start ripping down the application. Before we do, let's go ahead and clear the terminal output. Navigate into the new project using cd score-keep. Now we can go ahead and start up the application using Meteor, run, and we're going to be specifying the release flag once again with the version 1.4.2. All Meteor commands support the release flag. We're going to be using it to make sure we're always on the same page. Now, when we do run this command, it's going to go through the exact same steps it went through for our Hello Meteor app. We start up that node server, getting our app up on localhost 3000. We kick off the MongoDB database server, and finally we build the app for the web. This means that if we go into the browser and go to localhost 3000, we actually see our application. Right here, we have the Boilerplate app. As long as you're seeing this, then you are good to continue on. We're going to be ripping down the Boilerplate app right now. Now, we're not going to be touching the Meteor directory, as I mentioned earlier. Never edit anything inside of this folder. It's only going to cause problems. We're also not going to be touching gitignore or package.json for the moment. Our goal here is to completely rip down these 4 files, the 4 files in the client and server directory. And we're going to start with server main.js. In here, we have some code. We load in a library and we attach an event listener. We're not going to worry about the details now. We'll be talking about the import keyword extensively, and we'll be using Meteor startup a little bit later. For now, we're going to rip it down completely and add a simple call to console.log in here. This is going to print a message letting us keep track of how the boilerplate project works. It's going to help us figure out when files run, and when they run, we'll know which file ran because we'll have a little log statement. Right here, we'll say log from /server/main.js. Just a little message to print to the screen. Now, when I save this file, we actually are going to see a change over inside of the terminal. It's going to restart since we edited some code, and right here we see log from server main.js printing to the screen, and this is fantastic. The main.js file is going to be automatically loaded on the server whenever we have the application running. Now, the server and client folder names are specific. Things in the client folder are going to be private to the client, and things in the server directory are going to be private to the server. So it's important to make sure you have the same application structure that I have here. Now we can move over into main.js. Inside of here, we have a ton of code. We're not actually going to be talking about most of this since we're not going to be using the built-in Blaze templating engine. We'll be using React instead. So we can go ahead and delete this for now, and we'll be adding another console.log call right here. We're going to use console.log to print another message to the screen, just like we did over here. Log from /client/main.js. Awesome. Now, when we save this file, our application is going to restart once again. But this file is in the client folder, which means the JavaScript files in here, they're going to be included on the browser, not on the server. You notice inside of the terminal, we do not have a log related to that file. If I head over to the browser, though, we can open up the Chrome developer tools and see just that. If you know the keyboard shortcut for the Chrome developer tools, feel free to use it. Otherwise, go to the menu, More tools, developer tools. We're going to be using the developer tools extensively throughout the course. They can be a point of confusion since they are pretty complex. For now though, all we have to do is go to this console tab up top, and we're not going to actually be typing anything. We're just going to be looking. Right here, you should see a message, log from /client/main.js. Now inside of this console, you're also going to see warnings, errors, and print statements from any Chrome extensions you have. That's exactly what's happening down below. So if you do see some weird errors, it might not mean your application has a problem. It might just mean one of your Chrome extensions is going a little crazy. Either way though, we do have this file automatically loaded for us. Now we're seeing the log statements on both the client and the server, and I'm sure you're wondering how these files are getting imported. We never manually said, hey, go ahead and use that main.js file inside of the client folder. This is because we don't have to. Inside of Meteor, there's two ways to load in functionality. You can use eager loading. Eager loading is what's happening right now. Meteor is automatically using certain patterns to detect files and adding them to the application, and lazy loading. Lazy loading is the primary technique we'll be using throughout the course. This is done via the ES6 import keyword, which is the topic of the next video. So stay tuned. Don't worry too much about that just yet. All you need to know for now is that inside of our application, most files, they're going to automatically be loaded. And this is really dangerous. It's actually an anti-pattern in Meteor these days. Meteor recommends not adding anything to the client or server folder. Now you're probably wondering, how do we build out our apps? We don't want to have all of our code in one file. I promise that's coming up in the next video when we talk about import. For now, let's illustrate the dangers of that. Over inside of the scorekeep folder, the root of the application, we're going to add a brand new file. I'm going to call this one app.js, and we're going to go ahead and add a console.log. And we're going to print the same message we printed here, log from app.js. I'm going to go ahead and save this file. Meteor in the background is going to start doing its thing. And if I open up the terminal, you can see we're actually getting log from app.js right here inside of the server, even though it's not in the server folder and even though we never told Meteor to use it. Now here's where things get really weird. Over inside of the browser, we have the exact same thing. We have our log from app.js, and then we have our log from the client main.js file. Now you can probably see why this is a pattern you'd want to avoid. Automatically loading files from all over your application makes things so much harder to maintain. You have to figure out exactly what's happening, where that file's coming from, and why that file's even running. We're going to be avoiding patterns like this throughout the course. Now the same is true for other directories. If I make a new folder and I call this folder app, and I toss app.js in that brand new folder, we're going to get the exact same functionality. Meteor is still going to dig around for JavaScript files it can run. Over inside of the browser, we still get app.js, and over inside of the terminal, the exact same thing still prints. Now this brings us to the next topic, directory names. As we know, the client and server directory names, those are important. They do have meaning. Client files only get loaded on the client, and server files only get loaded on the server. This means that if I take app.js and I drag it into client, we're not going to see the log statement on the server anymore. We only get the log from server/main.js, but we are still going to get that log over here inside of the browser. Log from app.js prints as expected. Now, aside from client and server, there are other directory names that are important, and they do have meaning inside of our application. Let's go ahead and delete that app folder for now. We're not actually going to be using it. I just created it to illustrate a point. We're going to go ahead right now and create a brand new folder, and we're going to call this folder imports. Now, as I mentioned, we can use eager loading or lazy loading. Eager loading is what we're seeing now. It's automatically loading in app.js. Lazy loading requires us to manually import certain files. Those files need to go in a directory called imports. Any file inside of the imports directory is not going to be automatically loaded into our application. This means that if we toss app.js in imports, we're not going to see it over here in the browser, and we're also not going to see it in the terminal. And this is more like what we want. Now we can still take advantage of the functionality inside of app.js. We'll learn how to do that with the import keyword in the next video. One more directory I want to talk about really quickly is the public folder. You can create a public folder inside of your application, and this does have consequences, just like server, imports, and client. Meteor treats this folder in a certain way. Anything inside of here is going to be treated as a public asset you want available on your server. So if I want to have a fob icon, which shows up in the tab of the browser right here, or I want to add an image into my page, I can add all of those files and folders inside of the public directory. Inside of public, we can illustrate this by making a new file. We can call this file help.html. And for now, we're going to go ahead and just type some text, leaving off any proper HTML structure. Help page here. Now, once you have your brand new help.html file in the public folder, let's go ahead and save it, move into the browser, and we are going to go ahead and move to /help.html. And right here, we get our little page. This page is completely disconnected from the rest of the Meteor application. We're not getting any logs. We're not getting anything except for what we have in the file. Public folder is a great place to toss those images and anything else you need available, like fonts, SVGs, and that sort of stuff. Now, it's important to note that these same eager loading problems exist for CSS and HTML files. It's going to automatically load that stuff in, causing unexpected behavior. Now, as I mentioned, this is now an anti-pattern. We're going to be talking about better ways to load in our styles and our templates. That's going to come up a little bit in this section and in the next section when we style the score keeper. For now, though, we've learned about 4 really important directories. We have the client folder, which stores our client-side application code. We're not going to be adding anything to this directory other than the 3 files you see here, even for the most complex apps. We also have our server folder, which has the exact same properties as the client folder, except it's only available on the server. And once again, we're not going to be adding on any files. When we do want to add files, we want to add JavaScript functionality, we're going to be putting that in the imports folder, and we're going to be lazy loading it using the import keyword, which you'll learn about in the next video. We also have an awesome public directory available to us. We can toss whatever we like in here. We could toss in HTML pages, zips we want users to be able to download, images, font icons, whatever public assets you need can sit right here in the public folder. Now, all of this is automatically tied together for us, which means inside of the browser, our files are automatically loaded. If you go to the Elements panel, you can check out exactly what the document looks like. I'm going to use the escape key to toggle the console down below, closing it, and I'm going to go ahead and open up the head of our document when I go to the root of the application. In the root of the application, inside of our head, we have a link. This link is linking in the style sheet file, and I can actually go ahead and open it by right-clicking the link and clicking Open Link in New Tab. It opens up a new tab, and right here we have our empty styles file because we don't have any style definitions provided. We also have, sitting right here, our Welcome to Meteor text. We're going to go ahead and keep that for the moment. And down below inside of the body, we have all of the script tags necessary to load in the JavaScript for our application. We'll talk about doing this in production a bit later. The last thing we're going to rip out of the boilerplate application is in main.html. Inside of here, we have some templates. These are down below inside of the template tags. We're going to remove them, and we have some code that adds those templates to the screen. We're going to be removing that as well. Now, you'll notice what we have here is not an official document. There is no doc type up above. We don't have an HTML tag. If you're familiar with HTML, this probably looks a little weird, but this is how Meteor wants you to structure your markup inside of main.html. It automatically adds the doc type and the HTML tag for you, letting you focus on just the essentials. Here we have a head where we can do some configuration, like configuring what shows up in the tab title. I can change this to uppercase S, score, space, uppercase K, keep, and I can go ahead and change the H1 tag to score, keep, app, just like this. When I save the file, it automatically refreshes, and there we go. We now have a much better boilerplate main.html file, something we can build on to in the rest of this section. Now, I know we covered a lot here, and the entire picture probably isn't clear. I promise as we talk about imports in the next video, it's going to become a lot more clear how we can build on to this boilerplate app without getting all sorts of weird behavior, where files are loaded on both the client and the server. This is a feature from past Meteor versions that is still supported for backwards compatibility, but is not recommended by the official guide. There is an official way to get things done, the best way to get things done using the import keyword. It's coming up next, so let's go ahead and dive right in. As a reminder, the code written in every video is available as a zip download under the resources for that lecture, which means you can download the code as you see right here inside of the resources. All right, I'll see you next time where we talk about imports.